important to do these two things together to help inform your recommendation on the LRDP amendment. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Amanda to discuss the project.
Good evening, my name is Amanda Sotomayor. I'm the project manager for the Van Dyke Road paving study. So, what is a PG&E study? A PG&E study is a comprehensive study that evaluates social, economic, and environmental effects associated with proposed transportation improvements to reach a decision on the type, location, and conceptual design to meet the project's purpose, and feasible build alternatives are developed and evaluated based on engineering factors and safety, socioeconomic impacts, environmental impacts, and public input. A no-build alternative, which considers leaving the roadway in its current condition while undertaking routine maintenance, remains a viable option throughout the study. The study limits extend from Gun Highway to east of Worley Road, a distance of approximately 3.47 miles. Although the study limits cover this full corridor, the environmental screening tool analysis is limited to the segment from the Suncoast Parkway to east of Worley Road. The existing roadway is an undivided two-lane east-west arterial with 12-foot travel lanes, unpaved shoulders, and open swale drainage. The posted speed limit is 45 miles per hour throughout the study limits. The existing right-of-way width ranges from 80 to 115 feet between Gun Highway and Worley Road, with a wider limited access right-of-way of approximately 240 feet at the Suncoast Park. Lake Park, a popular county-operated recreation area, is located just south of Van Dyke Road and is adjacent to the study corridor. Full roadway reconstruction west of the Suncoast Parkway is not proposed due to the policy constraints outlined in the Keystone Odessa Community Plan, which prioritizes rural preservation and limits major roadway expansion in that area. The CV mitigation site is also part of the PG&E study area and is being included to offset unavoidable impacts to wetlands. The purpose of this project is to increase roadway capacity, improve operational efficiency, and enhance safety for all users along Van Dyke Road, Gun Highway to east of Worley Road. Van Dyke Road serves as a key east-west connector and hurricane evacuation route, linking residential communities and commercial centers to regional corridors such as Gun Highway, Suncoast Parkway, and Del Mabry Highway. The project addresses existing congestion and delay issues and will provide enhanced mobility options through the addition of pedestrian and bicycle facilities. Van Dyke Road operates at level of service C under current traffic volumes, which range from about 22,000 to 26,500 vehicles per day. By the year 2048, traffic is expected to grow to between 27,500 and 33,500 vehicles per day. Without improvements, the roadway is projected to operate at level of service E, contributing to congestion and delays. With the proposed widening and improvements, Van Dyke Road is expected to operate at level of service C, providing improved traffic flow and reducing traffic time for motorists. Safety is a major concern along Van Dyke Road. Over a 5-year period from 2017 to 2021, 284 crashes were reported between the Suncoast Parkway and St. John's Hospital. Of these crashes, 61% were rear-end collisions, 12% were angle crashes, 11% involved left turns, and 6% were side swipes. The calculated crash rate for this corridor is 2.61 crashes per million vehicle miles, which is notably higher than the statewide average crash rate of 1.35 million vehicle miles for similar arterials. Planned safety improvements include constructing a raised median to reduce crashes, lowering speed limits, and adding pedestrian and bicycle facilities to enhance safety for all users. The Van Dyke Road project proposes improvements to enhance traffic flow, safety, and multimodal connectivity. The preferred alternative widens Van Dyke Road to a 4-lane divided roadway with a shared use path on both sides between the Suncoast Parkway and east of Worley Road. This widening includes a raised median to improve safety and provide space for turn lanes at key intersections. Other projects also extend multimodal access by connecting the Upper Tampa Bay Trail to the Northdale Lake Park Trail. These enhancements will improve access for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized users, linking local parks and surrounding communities. The proposed section for the Van Dyke Road improvements features a 4-lane divided roadway. Each direction of travel will have 2 11-foot lanes separated by a 22-foot raised median. The section includes type E curb and gutter on the inside, type F curb and gutter on the outside edges. A shared use path ranging from 10 to 12 feet wide will be constructed on both sides of the road, providing enhanced connectivity for pedestrians and cyclists. The typical section has a design speed of 40 miles per hour and requires a minimum right-of-way width of 122 feet. Adjacent projects include a trail extension from the Upper Tampa Bay Trail, which includes a 10-foot wide shared use path that begins along the north side of Van Dyke and crosses to the south side approximately 1,000 feet east of Gun Highway. The path will be located between the roadway and the right-of-way line and is designed to minimize impacts to wetlands and natural areas. Additionally, a trail connection project is proposed along Worley Road on the east end of the corridor to tie into the existing Northdale Lake Park Trail, further enhancing connectivity throughout the project limits. A roundabout is proposed for the intersection at Lakeshore Road. It provides a continuous flow of traffic and is engineered to function effectively even during power outages. Roundabout's simple design also reduces long-term maintenance needs while enhancing access for all users along Van Dyke Road. It also enhances safety by reducing vehicle speeds at the intersection in a controlled and consistent manner. At the intersection of Lake Reflections Boulevard and Darby Lane, a peanut roundabout has been selected. This configuration supports traffic flow while providing a direct connection to the main entrance of Grace Family Church. The design is proven in other states and is intended to improve navigation and safety at this location. The peanut roundabout is also designed for low maintenance operations and will continue functioning during power outages. Modern roundabouts are proven to be safer than traditional intersections. They eliminate the most severe types of crashes, such as T-bone and head-on collisions, that commonly occur at conventional intersections. Roundabouts also lower vehicle speeds, which greatly increases pedestrian safety. A need to construct off-site stormwater management facilities and associated floodplain compensation areas has been identified for the proposed improvements along Van Dyke Road. Approximately 4 acres of additional right-of-way will be acquired to accommodate these facilities. Floodplain compensation is proposed within Lake Park. As part of the study, a detailed environmental analysis was conducted to identify and evaluate potential impacts associated with the proposed improvements. This includes a thorough review of natural resources, cultural resources, and social and physical environments. The project is being developed in compliance with all applicable environmental regulations and procedures to minimize impacts wherever possible. To accommodate the roadway widening and the construction of off-site stormwater management facilities and floodplain compensation areas, acquisition of approximately 10.05 acres of right-of-way is anticipated. This includes a total of 32 affected parcels. Right-of-way acquisition is expected to result in 11 potential business relocations with no residential relocations anticipated. This evaluation matrix compares the right-of-way acquisition requirements and environmental impacts of the preferred alternative to the no-build or do-nothing alternative, which remains the viable option through the end of the study. The preliminary estimated cost of the project, including design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction phases, is approximately $132 million in today's dollars. The Van Dyke Road study began in July of 2018, with a brief pause between February 2020 through July 2022. Approval of the PD&E study is anticipated in fall of 2025. After having the public hearing, the study team is currently reviewing public input and updating the evaluation and project documents accordingly. Project design phase is currently underway. However, the project is not currently funded for right-of-way acquisition or construction in the Hillsborough County's capital improvement fund.
So now that you know more about the project, I'll walk you through the action before you today, which is a proposed amendment to the long-range transportation plan. So the reason we're bringing this amendment to you today is twofold. First, we need to move Van Dyke into the cost feasible section of the long-range transportation plan to satisfy the federal planning consistency requirement so that the county can complete that PD&E that Amanda was talking about. Additionally, this project must be in the cost feasible section to maintain that federal funding eligibility if those federal dollars were to become available. I won't belabor the project benefits since Amanda did a great job walking you through the congestion, access management, safety features of the roundabouts, as well as the multimodal options and connecting these long-standing trip gaps in the program. So as Amanda mentioned, the PD&E is supposed to wrap up this fall, and then preliminary engineering to get to 100% plans is funded, but that right-of-way acquisition and construction remains unfunded. So in order to accommodate moving Van Dyke where it currently exists on the unfunded needs of the long-range plan to the cost feasible plan, TPO staff and the county looked at all of those locally funded cost feasible projects and arrived at the recommendation that 46th Street from Fletcher Avenue to Crispy Downs Boulevard would be a good candidate to move to unfunded to accommodate Van Dyke. So basically just a swap. And there's a few reasons why we came to that conclusion. First is from a practical perspective. 46th Street is not currently in project development. If you can recall, this segment is a Butts USS golf course. In order to complete this project and connect it all the way to Crispy Downs, many apartment and multifamily apartments would need to be taken and acquired for right of way. So there's some pretty big hurdles for that. Additionally, the data that we analyze is 46th Street is more reliable and less congested than Van Dyke. So there is a higher need for that project over 46th Street. And then also both projects reside in the same county commission district. So swapping those projects could also work from that perspective. So to reiterate, the proposed cost balancing is to move Van Dyke into that cost feasible portion of our long range plan, and then move 46th Street from the cost feasible to the unfunded needs. And the recommended action before you today is to recommend approval of the LRTP amendments to the TPO board. Amanda would be happy to answer any project specific questions, and I'd be happy to address any LRTP questions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Amanda and Elizabeth. Any questions or discussions from the members? We'll start with Dana.
The 132 million, that's the number that would be needed. At the end of your presentation, you said something about 132.
The total cost of the project, that includes the PDD study.
Okay.
And the design that's already funded.
Perfect, thank you. How much has the county put in towards this project? So the county paid for the PD&E?
Company has
Okay.
paid for the PDD and the design.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. On one of those earlier slides, I saw a cost that it broke out the cost, but the cost were closer to like 110 million. I was wondering why there was a difference.
The PD&E is a good.
So, okay. There, that one.
Yeah, that was. Did I miss it?
Yeah, you passed it. Two more.
It's on your slides, Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
these
we
are
can-
gonna be a little bit higher because we added an additional inflation factor to be programmed in fiscal years like 31. Or further out into the plan.
If I could elaborate on that, part of that is because when Amanda was saying, she was saying like the cost of today's dollars. And when we do an LRTP, when we put it in the cost feasible plan, we're required to put it in the time buckets.
Okay.
And since it's in a further out time bucket, we need to account for the cost going up between today and that time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller or Mr. Jones?
Yeah, quick question. You said that there was 11 businesses that were gonna have to be relocated.
Yes.
Are they all in on this, or are they gonna initiate lawsuits and then,
Well, the right of way acquisition phase hasn't started, so
but they know about it?
they know about it because we presented to them. So once we get the funding for right of way, we will be able to approach them and we'll be getting the appraisals from them and we'll keep in communication with them.
Just in general, when something like this takes place, how many lawsuits do you expect, or if any?
It could be none, it could be all of them, just don't know.
Just historically speaking,
Yes.
is there a percentage?
If they're amicable to the negotiations, then it would be just negotiate. If they're against it, then that's where we go and submit the lawsuit.
You don't know historically how many?
That would be probably real estate
Yeah.
department question.
Okay. Just curious.
Yes, Ms. Adams.
I have a question. So is this a true cost swap out? Because I'm looking, the dollar amounts are different because Fletcher is significantly cheaper than this one. Am I missing that when I'm looking at the dollar amounts here or something? Am I missing something?
No, so the 46th Street, the way that like Sarah was talking about, we phase it out and I didn't put that table in here.
Okay.
This ensures that it's cost feasible. There's actually some money left over. One thing I'd also like to emphasize is the long range plan isn't like the transportation improvement program where like is actually programming money. This is estimated revenue. So it's really just kind of high level back of the napkin math for long range planning purposes. But our initial analysis shows that it's fiscally constrained. You could swap these projects out and maintain that.
So something to keep it out. Okay.
Hi.
I wanted to ask about the rest of the planning consistency. Is this project in the citizen step already? Or is it coming after the LRTP amendment is approved?
That's a great question. If federal funds are awarded to it, which is very much an unknown, it would be added to the transportation improvement program. So it's not currently in the TIP, but it is on the TPO's priority list.
Okay, my second question is, like, when are you anticipating public hearing for this? Or has it already happened?
Yeah, we had public hearing in June.
Thank you.
Dana?
Follow-up question about the businesses. What were their reactions when, because during PD&E, you do the community engagement. So did you go door to door? I'm curious what the reaction was from those businesses.
So we haven't met with them personally. We did have a public meeting during the initial part of the PD&E, and those that attended the public meeting, we did talk to them. And others approached us, and we had the public hearing in June. I've spoken to one property owner, because he consistently calls me to see how things are moving along, and he seems okay with it. He's in favor of the project.
I'm curious in general, any, interesting opposition or support from the public that you guys learned in those public
We
meetings?
have a lot of positive feedback at our last public hearing we just had. Everybody seemed to be happy about the widening that will help with the traffic issues they're having up there.
Ed?
Yeah, I would just say the section east of this is 4-lane and it narrows down to 2 lanes. Where we're at the eastern end of the project. And I really like the idea of the roundabouts at those 2 intersections because one borders a gigantic Catholic church. The other one, in addition to Grace Church, there's a big retreat center back there. And I can tell you from experience, you try to get out of there onto Van Dyke, at noon on a Saturday, and it is dangerous. So I really applaud the use of those roundabouts.
Any other yes, Chris?
I had a question on the second roundabout, Lake Reflections Boulevard. I was curious why this type of roundabout was chosen over a traditional.
You are here, so I'll first answering this.
Well, we had to mention, we met with some property owners during the initial PD&D efforts. So we met with Grace Family, we met with Lake Reflections Community and others down Darby. Everyone wanted equal access. Grace Family doesn't connect across to the Lake Reflections. That doesn't seem to be something that's in the works. So the Peanut Roundabout allowed us to make multiple connections using the same intersection.
Ma'am, can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Tammy Crisley, I'm with Baller Davis and Associates.
Okay, I'm just curious because the Grace Family Church they have a large parking lot that runs along Lake Reflections.
Yes.
Looks like what could be done is have a regular roundabout, because the church has on the western part, they have a entrance, or I don't know if it's an entrance, but they at least have an access to get onto the road there. Then they could just build another connection onto Lake Reflections, and it would probably make this project a lot cheaper just to have the solo roundabout. If they were to just have a connection up there.
We brought that up to both parties. Here, Peanut Roundabout.
Okay, as follow-up to that is Grace Family Church, are they contributing any funds to having towards this project?
Giving up with the frontage right away, as well as some parking.
Okay.
So they'll be negotiated with during the right of way acquisition.
Okay, but they're gonna be being paid for that right away acquisition?
That will be worked out.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Citro.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you brought up stormwater in your presentation. It's been beat buzz with any road building. Both projects, the Van Dyke and the, 49th to Bruce B. Down? 46 to Bruce B. Down. Have they been on the list about the same amount of time? Has one been there longer than the other? Because you're asking for a swap out, and I know that someone down the road is going to complain about it. I just want to know which one has been on the list longer.
Great, that's an excellent question. I know they were both in the 2025 plan, so at least one LRTP cycle ago. I don't know prior to that, but in our coordination with Hillsborough County Public Works, they don't anticipate moving that project forward, at least in the next 3 years.
Yeah, because I've always said the Van Dyke one day would be like the Mabry, but we do have a problem right now with what is Fowler, is it 49?
Yeah.
Fletcher, right, yes. Thank you very much.
Mr. Johnson.
So if we accept this action, my question is, where do you think this is gonna rack and stack? And what is it, the TPO compared to everything else that's in it? Or do you have any idea of what that's gonna be?
That's an excellent question. Following our current prioritization procedures, I don't know that this project will move up much for the TPO's priority list. I know the county has CIT funding and that may be a source. We are looking at our prioritization process, but if we were to have the same process that we use today, it would not jump to the top.
Elizabeth, if I could add to that, just to talk about kind of what happens from here. Maybe for clarification purposes, Elizabeth, you could mention like what happens after if this gets approved. Does anything change besides that, or what those next steps could look like to help the community understand that relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. So after this amendment is considered, we will continue to coordinate closely with Hillsborough County annually with the priority list and with our next update of our long range plan. But at this time, there are no federal funds programmed. It's possible there may be new discretionary grants available. So really, after this, it's just coordination and seeing how we can help each other, but there aren't dollars programmed, at least through the next 5 years. Did you want to add anything to that, Sarah?
No, I think that answers this.
Great. Any other questions or comments for the people in the room? I see none. Anybody online? I'm not seeing any hands up.
Stand up.
Okay. Bill Roberts, you're
Hey.
recognized.
Hey, thank you. I had to raise a manual hand. Just a quick question, and I know you haven't done your community engagement yet, but I'm curious if you have consulted with the University of South Florida because the 46th Street extension will ultimately feed development of that golf course. Have you been in touch with them yet?
So can you try speaking?
Cannot hear you, Bill. So,
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll try it again. My question is, if you're going to abandon the 46th Street project,
Bill, if you have a quick question, you could put it in the chat and we can read it
I'll put
out
it in
for
the
you.
chat. Okay, thank you.
Can you hear us from online or no?
I can hear you fine.
All of the
Okay.
people online can hear each other, but I don't believe that the room can hear us.
We're
I
not
think that's
able
what's
to
going
hear
on.
anybody online. We will see what we can do to fix that. Gail, can you try speaking?
Yeah, I just was, and we can hear each.
Okay.
Oh, you know,
Okay.
try one of those speakers. Can you try changing them?
These are the ones that they told us to use for Teams meetings. There's like a Post-it note. I'll try. Gail,
Yeah,
can
we
you try
can
now?
hear you and we can hear one another. However,
We can hear you
you
now.
cannot hear us.
No, we can't.
Can't hear me. I'm talking to you like you can hear me.
Now we can hear you. Bill, do you want to try again?
Yeah, can you hear me this time?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for the effort. My question had to do with the swapping out with 46th Street and the fact that that road will eventually serve the development of the golf course owned by the University of South Florida. So I was curious if you've had any communication with USF or if that's still premature.
That's a great point. We had not reached out to USF, but one thing about long-range planning is we will be revisiting this list again in a year or two. So I will personally make a note when we're looking at the next cost feasible to make sure we coordinate with USF and their plans for redeveloping the golf course.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the folks online? Seeing any?
Don't see anyone else online wishing to speak.
Okay, great discussion and questions, everybody.
I got one last more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So taking into consideration on swapping out 46th Street and with what Bill just said, I mean, there's got to be a consideration now that USF plans on building a football stadium just south of Fletcher, I believe, location. And I think 46 would then end up becoming one of those roads to get congestion in and out of there. I don't know what the parking plan and so forth for the game, but now you got to start looking at that. It could now become a bigger priority.
Absolutely. And we can take all of that information into consideration when we update our transportation demand model, which will show if those development projects are moving along to capture that investment. I believe the USF Stadium is going to be, Fletcher and 53rd, 52nd, 50th.
It's around that.
They're like literally.
Yeah.
Yes, that's about right. It's near the baseball stadium.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, if there are no further comments, Ms. Lazarus.
I hate to harp on this, but because I used to do PD&Es briefly, and why not go to those businesses? How were those businesses notified that this project is being proposed? Did they receive the newsletter? Is that confirmed?
Yeah, for the public meeting and the public hearing, we did send a letter out to all the property owners in the area. So whoever attended to the meetings, we spoke with them in person if they had questions about the project. Right, which,
Did you send to the site address and the owner address or just the owner address?
I believe they were.
I believe it's probably addresses.
Okay, I just, in good conscience, had to ask. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Seen.
Maybe the recommendation, if you can, maybe share with the project website where the project, the public involvement plan and the other documents are available so that if we want to look at exactly who the stakeholders of the older coordination, that will be really helpful. Share it.
Actually, that link is already in your write-up, so that will link to their website, and then there's another link where you can see all of the details. You guys did a really great job talking.
Yeah, that was also shared in the newsletter given to the property owners. So they had all the additional information there.
Thank you.
Great suggestion. Well, if there are no further comments or questions, may I have a motion to recommend approval of the LRTP amendment as presented?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Ms. Majewski seconds. Gail, can you please do a roll call vote for this one?
Yes,
Gail, do you have it?
I think so. I may need some help making sure I've got everybody in the room. Stephen Hollenkamp,
Approve, or yes?
Dana Lazarus,
Yes.
Brandon Goyen,
Yes.
Joseph Citro,
Yes.
Matt Sink,
Yes.
Aya Yassin,
Yes.
Andrew Marchetti,
Yes.
Ed Marszewski.
Yes.
Chris Gonzalez,
Yes.
Dustin Johnson,
Yes.
Ivia Adams,
Yes.
Stephen Paul Jones,
Yes.
did I get everybody, all voting members in the room?
So Carson cannot vote.
Oh, this one, so yes.
The motion passes 12-0.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have finished our 2 action items. On to our 2 status reports. We are moving quickly, y'all. Okay, we'll now hear from Craig Fox with FDOT for an informational update on Courtney Campbell Causeway study.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me here this afternoon. My name is Craig Florence with the Department of Transportation, District 7, and I'm here to present on the study kickoff for the Courtney Campbell Causeway P&E study, or Stable 60 P&E study. So the limits of this project. The limits of this project are on the west. It begins at County Road 611 or McMullen Booth Road in Nellis County, and it extends. Actually, it's not, I think, and it extends across Old Tampa Bay into the city of Tampa, ending just west of the Veterans Expressway or State Road 589. The length is approximately 9.4 miles. Now, the Courtney Campbell Causeway is an important east-west corridor. It connects to 2 CIS facilities, that's the Veterans Expressway and US 19. It connects 2 cities, the city of Tampa and the city of Clearwater. It is also an emergency evacuation route. What I've shown on the screen is the existing typical section. You'll see we have 2 lanes, travel lanes in each direction, and those range from around 11 to 12 feet. You also have access roads on both the north and south side, and a shared path on the south side of the causeway. Speed limits along the corridor range between 45 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour. Now, review the project's needs, starting from the left side of the screen with structural improvements. The oldest structure along that corridor, there's 3 bridge structures. that cross over Old Tampa Bay. The oldest of the structures is around 51 years old, the others being younger than that. We're going to conduct a life cycle cost analysis to determine whether we should continue to rehabilitate those structures or it's more cost effective to build new structures. Moving on next to causeway vulnerability. As we're all well aware of, there was impacts to Corning Campbell Causeway from the hurricanes last year, both Helene and Milton. So we're looking at improvements that we can make to make them more resistant to storms. There's also a separate study that's underway, causeway betterments, that's looking at some improvements also. So we're working in conjunction with that project to bring those benefits to fruition. And now moving on to safety. The corridor experiences a crash rate of 1.39 million vehicle miles traveled. That's around 2.7 times higher than the statewide average for a similar facility. So there definitely is some needs for some safety improvements along the corridor. And we do see high crash rates at the Dr. Karen Patel Boulevard, the boat ramp entrance, and Rocky Point Drive. At Rocky Point Drive, we do see a higher frequency of bike and pedestrian crashes, so we're going to pay special attention to that intersection. Traffic capacity. Capacity is needed before the design year of 2050. We're going to explore that more as we develop a project traffic analysis report. And there is that congestion, that capacity need is between Dr. Patel Boulevard and Bay Harbor Drive. And the corridor also does serve as an emergency evacuation route, so we have to make sure that it does have capacity to facilitate evacuations. Regarding water quality, around the 2010s, FDOT conducted an Old Tampa Bay water quality improvement study, and that led to the Virginia Creighton Bridge being constructed. That's the easternmost bridge along the causeway. And what that did is that it opened up additional waterway for the circulation of water north of the causeway. So that helped to improve the water quality a decent amount. As part of this project, we're gonna relook at that study and see if there's any opportunities where we can make further improvements to water quality to the water body north of the causeway. So the project's purpose is to address the vehicle capacity, increase safety, and also provide adequate emergency evacuation routes. And we're also looking to improve Corning Campbell Causeway to withstand flooding and other storm events. As part of the PDE study, we'll be looking at several environmental factors. They include natural resources, looking at the wetlands, central fish habitat, protected species and habitats, that includes both plant and animal species. We'll also be going to be looking at cultural resources. So that looks at any archaeological history throughout the area and any current, any cultural resources on the corridor 2 in section 4F, which oftentimes in parts of it could also be historic resources also, or cultural resources also. We're also going to analyze the social environment. That's looking at parks and rec. Of course, you know, the Corning Campbell Trail is a heavily used recreational trail. And then you also have Ben T. Davis and also the beach to the west that are very significant to the community. So we pay special attention to those also. We're also going to analyze land use and community impacts, up to and including relocations. But so far, we don't anticipate much of any relocations. As far as physical environment, we're going to look at the air quality, noise, and contamination along the corridor also. Now, where we stand with the transportation plans regarding the LRTP. As far as the Fort Pinellas LRTP goes, the process is not, none of the design segments, but I'll actually get to that in the next slide. None of the design segments are in the 2050 LRTP for Fort Pinellas. They are also not in the 2050 LRTP for the Hillsborough TPO. They are listed in the TPO's LRTP as an unfunded need, however. So we'll be working closely with both TPOs to get planning consistency throughout the course of the project. Now onto the schedule and funding. So I'll start with the schedule on the left. We're currently in the data collection phase. The project did begin in June, so the data collection is ongoing at the moment. We do have a kickoff meeting, an in-person kickoff meeting that's coming up on September 4th. I'll get to those details on the next slide. So we're going to be preparing documents throughout 2026, and we anticipate a public hearing towards the end of 2026. And we're anticipating the study approval in early 2027. The table on the right shows the funding and the breakdown of the design segments. Segment 1, that's in Pinellas County. Segment 2, that largely contains that main span the main span motorist bridge and also that pedestrian bridge also. And segment 3, that's the remaining portion east of Access Road to just west of the Veterans Expressway. As you can see, no segments are currently funded within the 5-year adopted work program. Like I mentioned, we'll have the kickoff meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 4th, from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. The location is going to be at the DoubleTree by Hilton Tampa Rocky Point Waterfront Hotel. And while there won't be a simultaneous virtual session, there will be all the boards that are presented at the in-person meeting will be available online. And we'll have a little bit of an extended comment period where people will be able to submit their comments and ask any questions to the department. That being said, we do have the project website available. We did the presentation to the TRC on Monday. We didn't have the website completely updated, but now it is available, so that information is now on the slide, and my contact information is there also. That concludes the presentation, and I'd like to open up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Committee, do we have any questions? Dana Lazarus.
Is this a reconstruction of the Courtney Campbell? Or what is it exactly?
So we're looking at capacity improvements along there. So whether that's going to be a reconstruction or a simple widening, that's to be determined. But obviously, we're going to choose something that has obviously, well, we're hoping to pick an alternative that has the least amount of impacts.
Did I miss that in your presentation? Like what exactly is gonna
It's a kickoff meeting.
No.
what's the point of the project?
Yes. So the point of the projects, I'll go back to the.
It's to deal with the crashes and stuff or?
Yeah. So the point of the project is to deal with all these different aspects. We're looking at structural improvements, the culvert vulnerability, safety improvements, traffic capacity, and water quality. So it covers all those items. We'll look to address with this meeting study. And it's just a kickoff right now. So we just started in June. So we don't have a typical section of the concept development at this point. But we're looking to have the in-person meetings so that we can get more input from the community. A lot of times, although we do send out a project kickoff flyer to everybody, that's a decent time from when you send out the flyer to when the public hearing is. So right now we want to get that public engagement ongoing a little bit earlier, get people's input to the concerns along the border earlier so we can incorporate them into the concepts before the hearing.
Questions. Does it have a traffic problem?
Yes. So we are looking at, there's going to be a capacity need before the design year, which is out in 2050. So we are looking to address capacity in regards to that. So.
Okay, last question. Since it's a bridge, is it on some kind of bridge maintenance schedule? I'm just wondering why we're looking at it now?
No. I mean, as far as from a structural standpoint, it's just simply the age of the structure. As it just get older, especially being across the bay and being around an aggressive saltwater environment, that does age bridges just over time. So, I mean, this is just natural progression, but we do inspect bridges at a minimum of 2 years. And then once they reach a certain structural capacity, then we inspect them more frequently than that. So there's no concern here as far as the structural stability of the bridge structures, but we're just getting ahead of the game so that we can do these studies earlier on so that we're not rushing trying to do it all way too fast.
Thanks.
Mr. Majewski.
Yeah, it seems like, unlike a typical roadway project, I mean, there are very few properties that are affected by this. I mean, it's a causeway, there's a few things around Rocky Point and stuff, but it seems like yet the people who have a stake in this are really region-wide. And so I would encourage you, I understand you're having a public hearing, but as you're going through a public information process, I mean, it's important that people that use the facility that live all over Pinellas County and Hillsborough are aware of it because, we all have an interest in that if we ever cross the bay on that facility. So I would just encourage you to, cast a wide net in terms of making people aware that this is going on, and if they want to come and speak for it or against it, to know that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mr. Johnson.
I've got, well, one of two things here. So one I'd like to know is how do you guys, if you plan on widening it out, how do you reduce those choke points? Because currently, I mean, you're gonna have domino effect going out there.
Well, right now, the choke point is sort of the causeway itself, because you have, when you look out east, so east of Rocky Point, you have a 6-lane facility. And then west of Memorial Road it is also a 6-lane facility going west of there. So the choke point right now is kind of getting into and out of the causeway.
So it's not gonna create a domino effect.
Not necessary.
Okay.
Brandon.
Yeah, so apologies if I'm like behind the page here on this, but I just want to understand like clearly all the terms that are thrown around. So this is to approve a PD&E of a project that would potentially expand or change the capacity of the Courtney Campbell Expressway, right? So this is just a study to investigate the impacts on the environment and like the area around it. It's not actually a commitment to making any changes in any capacity.
So this is a presentation for the kickoff of the PD study that is looking at one of the factors of this study is looking at capacity improvements. So we're just kicking off that process right now. We haven't developed any kind of concepts or typical sections to express that. We still have to go through the traffic analysis, the full traffic analysis to determine exactly what that's going to look like. But one of the aspects of the study is to look at capacity improvements along.
If I can jump in, this is a status report to provide the committee with information and collect your feedback as well, and also bring awareness to this. So we will get updates along the way. I know FGOT has often comes back to us toward the end of a project when they're doing the public hearing or something like that. So I think the purpose, as Craig just said, is to provide information to you to help spread the word and to let you know this is happening. And it's the very beginning of a project. So if you have input for FGOT, like the comments about outreach, I think that's the kind of feedback that I'm guessing FGOT is looking for, as well as letting other people know that this is happening and maybe attending yourself if you have an interest. If I could.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Mr. Singh.
I just wanted to kind of add to Ed's previous comment about the regional connectivity. Was that something that you guys also looked at or are looking at, the impacts of the regional connectivity and maybe the need for that as well, for that improving this connection will create a better connectivity in the region?
So one thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing we also have going on, kind of with a similar timeline to this project, we actually have a corridor study that's going on, that starts pretty much from our eastern limits, just at Blatchman's a little bit further than that, starts at Veterans Expressway, actually goes all the way out on 60 down to downtown Clearwater. And that's a corridor study that's looking specifically, well, not specifically, it was looking at a myriad of different origin and destination concerns along the corridor with that connectivity. And we're actually kind of mirrored up as far as our traffic analysis goes. So we're normally do the corridor study kind of before today. This time we're doing it kind of at the same time. So the PD is going to kind of take from that corridor study and kind of build from that. So as far as regional connectivity, we also do have that in the background that's running at the same time, that's looking at the real region from all the way from Veterans all the way to downtown Clearwater.
Thank you. Matt.
Got a question just on the flooding and the impact from the hurricanes. I know there's damage done last time. Is there ever a conversation like they had for Gandy where they did the elevated commuting lines over the top of these things? Like, at what point does a causeway turn into a bridge because of these issues? And at what point, since the commuting bridge, does it become a toll road stacked above an existing structure to move people in and out, even in the event there is flooding?
So right now we don't have, so as far as toll facilities, that's more so managed by Florida Turnpike along with the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, which just right now to an extent it's Pinellas County. So that would have to be a whole separate agreement for that. But so right now we're not anticipating a toll facility in regards to whether it's going to be an elevated bridge structure or not. I know for Gandy Boulevard, that the capacity along Gandy Boulevard is certainly a lot higher, and that's kind of why that was suggested to be a grade separated structure. That would be kind of the next step as far as increasing capacity. Right now, we're not necessarily anticipating that we'll have to go a full grade separated facility with frontage roads. And this one's a little bit more unique too, just because the land use around the area is more kind of a thoroughfare traffic versus Gandy. As soon as you get out there, there's residences on both of them.
Right.
But as far as Gandy Boulevard, where the traffic kind of jam was on the Pinella side. Here, the more congested portion is actually kind of within the causeway itself.
And then this is a state funded project, so there's not money coming from the counties on this, or will there be?
So right now we're preparing it as to be ready for both state and federal funds. Right now, we're not anticipating that there will be local funding needed for it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Adams.
Can I ask you a question about the open house?
Yes.
And to piggyback off of Ben's thing, what types of communication are you doing? Like flyers? Are you doing like little news prompt things? Because it is a huge thing. Like, so because if you do something generic, you'll get like 10 people, right? But, so what are you using for that?
Yeah, so we're gonna advertise it both, so we advertise in 3 newspapers, the Tampa Bay Times, like I said, and the Florida Sentinel Bulletin. In addition to that, we send out notifications, flyer notifications, so mail notifications to both property owners and tenants within a minimum of 300 feet. We exceed that greatly, more often than not. I have been also talking with our public information office about doing some geofencing. That'll do is if you're driving the corridor, basically kind of the advertisers are watching. So if you're driving through a corridor, we can geofence it, and that way, not while you're driving, it's not gonna pop up, but then when you're browsing on, whatever social media you do, you might get an ad that's related to the corridor. We're also, our public information office is also producing a flyer that we can post on our website. And we're also reaching out to any homeowners associations within the corridor that we can contact and get this information to them too.
It's just since it's the bridge, it's not like a traditional,
Yeah.
how you traditionally update people. So that's what I'm just.
Okay, any other, Mr.
Just,
Majewski?
it's just following up on that. It seems like, this would be it would really be helpful if you could get like a feature article in the St. Peter or the Tampa Bay Times. Because for anybody who still reads the newspaper, which I think is still about a third of us, that's a good way to get mass information out.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, we need to start talk to our PO office about that. So that's something that could be done.
Any other questions inside the room? Virtually, anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Fox?
We got a question in the chat if there's consideration for a virtual option, and I believe in the presentation, they said there would be no virtual option. Is
So,
that correct, Craig?
well, because this is an open, I'm sorry, let me explain this a little bit better. So it isn't gonna be an open house. So we're gonna have like boards set up. So we're gonna have, so the type boards we're gonna have set up, we're gonna have the existing typical sections like sort of today. And then kind of a roll plot showing the land uses today. Like I said, we don't really have concept developed right now. So we're gonna have other information there available, but because the one this is in the public hearing, we don't have the concept developed. We're not gonna have that formal portion where there's the public comment portion and, have to give a speech and everything like that. And so because the format of it is gonna be more kind of come in and just ask questions. As far as making a virtual session, we're just gonna have it online and then folks will be able to engage kind of online. So same as that documents that you have in person will be available online, but it's not gonna be like a live session, if that makes sense.
Anything else online?
Anyone else online, if you could raise your hand? I don't see anyone else online looking to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fox. We have no vote or action taken on this one, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good job.
Okay, our next item is a presentation from Harmony McGee on the 2025 Public Participation Plan.
It's pronounced Harmony.
Harmony, okay, thank you, Harmony.
So good evening. My name is Harmony McGee. I'm the Community Relations Coordinator for the Hillsborough TDO. And this evening, I'll be presenting the Public Participation Plan update for this year. So just a little background about what the public participation plan is. It is our set of guidelines and procedures for how we do public engagement, particularly during the transportation planning process. And it is a commitment that the TPO must uphold and hold itself accountable to. It's updated every 2 to 3 years and was previously updated in 2022. And as you all might remember, in March, you all received the Measures of Effectiveness report. That document coincides with the PPP. And so in the Measures of Effectiveness report, we made some recommendations for the update of the PPP, and this presentation will address those recommendations. So for the PPP changes, we will address standardizing public notice times, printed media, the TPO priority list public meeting, addressing recommendations from the MOE report, and also the public participation. So first, we're standardizing public notice times for the LRTP adoption and LRTP amendments, the TIP adoption, and also now the TPO priority list. We will be publishing at least 10 days prior to the TPO board meeting or public hearing a public notice to provide the community with advance notice of the meeting. This standardization comes to give staff ease on the back end, especially when trying to coordinate with the newspaper. It was causing some issues just because there were so many variances in the days. So having a standard of 10 days across the board makes that coordination a little bit easier. The only exception would be the public participation plan because we have a legal requirement for that one. So it's staying at 45 days. Now for printed media, we are proposing that we remove the requirement to place ads in the newspaper from the PPP and replace it with a more cost-effective printed method. This is after a study that we conducted during the Transportation Improvement Program's public engagement process. We used unique QR codes to track the engagement that we were getting on the newspaper ads, and we found that it wasn't very cost-effective. So we would like to brainstorm with you all maybe some alternatives to replace that. Next, for the TPO priority list, now that the TPO has implemented the practice of presenting the TIP and the TPO priority list as separate items, we would like to no longer require that the TPO priority list have to be approved at a public hearing, but that it could also be approved at a public meeting. And we've also set a 15-day review period for the TPO priority list to ensure the community has time to review the document. Now to address the MOE recommendations, just as a refresher of what those recommendations were, they were to make our surveys more ADA compliant, to address sign postings for the TIP, standardizing meeting postponements, combating survey fatigue, expanding our presence on YouTube, and also evaluating the committee process. So for the MOE recommendation of making our surveys ADA compliant, we have identified SurveyMonkey and Survey123 as the platforms that we'll be using moving forward. Previously, we were using other platforms such as MetroQuest, and we were having some challenges with making them compliant. A testimony as to why this is so important is our recent work on Bush Boulevard, in which we did outreach with visually impaired communities. And due to that outreach that we were able to do, the pedestrian infrastructure had vocalization features added to it. So that is why we have such a strong emphasis on making sure that our surveys are compliant. Next, for the MOE recommendation for road signs, we would like to remove road signs as a PPP requirement. They will be still outlined in the public participation toolbox to give staff the discretion to utilize the road signs, but not make them a requirement. And this is similar to the printed media study that we did, where
We also use unique QR codes for this to track the amount of engagement that we were getting on the signs. And they also proved not to be very cost effective based on the amount of engagement we were getting. They also pose a potential hazard for staff when having to place them out on the road and also for community members. Of course, pedestrians would be able to utilize the signs and scan the QR code, but for those that are driving, it's kind of a hazard to try to engage with the sign while you're driving. And it also requires a lot of staff time and labor. For meeting postponements, we have set a 4 calendar day window to cancel or postpone meetings. And this would be at the discretion of the TPO director in consultation with the committee liaison. And this just comes in preparation for things like hurricane season to give committee members ample time to prepare for situations like that. So for the other MOU recommendations, they were addressed by the public engagement toolbox. The public engagement toolbox can be found on Appendix C of the PPP, and it simply outlines various strategies and techniques that we can use to conduct public engagement. So for an example, instead of using surveys to do engagement, we might use focus groups. And this is a strategy that can be used to address survey fatigue. For Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, those would be techniques that could be used to expand our online presence. And those videos are short form videos that are typically around 60 to 90 seconds. And they're more engaging than long form videos because in this day and age, people want information quick and fast. So that would be a technique used to expand our online presence. And the public engagement toolbox simply gives staff the flexibility to cater our public engagement methods to unique needs and concerns of each study. So as you've heard, there have been many changes to the PPP, all designed to make our public engagement more efficient, accessible, and consistent. This is a status report, so we are looking for feedback. We would specifically like to hear feedback on alternative ways that TPO can approach public notices. As you'll see on the slide, we have a few suggestions on how we might approach that. And if we could, we would like to at least select 2 of these, or if you all could brainstorm 2 options that are on the slides that we can take back as feedback. And that concludes.
Okay. Thank you, Harmony. Questions for Harmony? Start with Dana.
What about a text opt-in, similar to the emergency alert texts that I think the county probably already owns that software? It would be good to add notices for things specifically like big things like the tip. Even if it was just like a once a year, be like, hey guys, send out a text about this. So some kind of like text opt-in to add to this list of suggestions here. And with that list of suggestions, I like all of them. I think my favorite might be direct mail, but it's expensive. That's my feedback.
Which we did do something kind of like that for the transportation improvement program. We had postcards made and we had unique QR codes on that, and that one actually was more effective than the tip signs. So I think that kind of aligns with your suggestion as well.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, have you approached any of the local TV stations that offer public service announcements?
No, we have not.
That might be something you want to look into. Sometimes they actually give you time for important stuff like this.
Thank you.
Ms. Adams?
Can I ask you a question about the Survey Monkey? How are you utilizing those to send out those surveys? Because like, are they going to the website and they're clicking, or is it after there's been an announcement, or they've enrolled in a direct mailing, so then they're like on a list, and so they're getting feedback that way? How's it working?
Typically, we try, when we have a survey launching, we launch it through multiple avenues, so people can access it multiple ways, so they can either access it directly through our website, or either like if they're signed up with our Connections to Tomorrow newsletter, it'll likely be promoted in there, and you can access it in the newsletter and also in social media.
And then on the essentially reels and those YouTube, so it's, even though like, you know, they're age based, right? So Facebook is like average user is 45 to like 60. And then Instagram, Snapchat, all of those. So the ones that you picked, did you pick the ones that you've seen in the past that you had the most engagement with? Is that why you're using these platforms?
Yes, and also I think it's Pew Research is showing that those are the most, yes, populated platforms right now. We would like to expand on TikTok as well, because that's one that's also popular, but there's some legality issues with that platform, but
Then I have one more question. With the mailings, the utility bill and all those, is there something that we can look at that shows the cost difference of those suggestions, right? Because direct mail is super expensive, but you may do a bunch of flyers at a faith-based place that just sit in someone's like drawer, right? So how do you know that what you're utilizing is actually going to end up being worth the cost, even if one is a little cheaper or more than the other one?
we don't currently have a cost analysis, but that's something I can work on.
Mr. Johnson?
Well, I was gonna say with the utility bill inserts, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is in today's day and age where people are getting their virtual bills instead of actually in the mailing, or but I don't know how beneficial that would be if somebody's getting that, you know, it's a PDF and they're not scrolling down far enough to the whole thing. But it could be a cost saving measure because of that fact itself that, you know, so I like that idea. And I was just gonna, you know, piggyback on what, my next door neighbor here was talking about with the social media aspect of it. I mean, because now it's all spreading throughout different means out there. I think there's a way that you could, there are some tools out there that you can actually propagate out to all the different social media platforms by just using one platform. And I'd have to look at more research on what they are, but I know there were some in the past. Have you guys looked at using something like that?
Yes, we
Okay.
currently use Buffer, so that allows us to launch campaigns on multiple platforms at the same time. So that's typically how we approach. So even though I specifically said Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, a lot of times it'll also go on Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
And X.
Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm wondering if maybe on Survey Monkey, let's say, I do a survey for some project, and then is there a way, you know, I input my email and stuff like that. Is there a way when we post another survey that those people who have input their emails could get notified, say, hey, there's a new survey for that, this other project?
Yes, we have a platform called Constant Contact. So once we get consent to use someone's email, we put them in our email list for future projects. So those things are.
And then another one, my driver's, my license plate registration's coming up due, and I'm wondering if you could partner with, county, you know, and maybe not necessarily each project, but, you know, this is the TPO, this is what we do, this is how you can interact and have a voice or whatever. Maybe there's like a flyer that can go with those, because, it wouldn't be so frequent, you know, get those once a year.
Brandon?
Yes, I think I saw on one of your slides, you had like a statistic that was something around like $650 per survey or signed QR code scanned. Is that a metric that is tracked across like all forms of engagement for all different forms of outreach to the public? And is that something that's benchmarked across like different counties and are we able to like see how cost effective their outreach methods are and maybe steal some of theirs from other counties?
Try benchmarking sometimes, but that's something that we can look into. As far as the cost effectiveness of our other methods, we haven't really measured it. We specifically measured this for this study. I do know we measure our social media metrics and we do paid social media advertisements, but others I can't see.
And then I did have a second part of that question. So I appreciate there was a want to decommit from spending a certain amount on advertising and signage, which, as I understand, is currently like required. Is there plans to then require that funding like with a similar like built-in requirement for it to be allocated somewhere else that does engagement with the public, or is it discretionary?
I can take that one if you want. So, the way the TPO's funding works is that every 2 years, we develop a unified planning work program. And the unified planning work program it's a budgetary and planning document. So it says what the TPO is going to do over a 2-year period and how much money we're going to spend on broad categories. And those broad categories are, for example, personnel, consultant dollars, and direct expenses, which include advertisements or printing. And then those are also broken out by the tasks. So one task, for example, is public engagement. Another is regional work. And there are multiple tasks. So we do have a line that says printing, and we have a line that goes for advertisements potentially. I don't recall the exact line breakdown, but they're at that high level by task. We cannot commit future funding outside of the Unified Planning Work Program. So we can't say that for every Unified Planning Work Program to come do this. But we could, in the public participation plan, or make a recommendation that certain minimums be upheld. But that again would be a recommendation or something staff could consider, but we can't obligate future funding. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then I guess I misunderstood originally then, right? So there is no like requirement that the EPO has to recommend or allocate funding towards a specific amount of flyers or posters or signs right now, as it stands.
Right now, the public participation plan says we're going to do these things and we hold ourselves accountable to doing those things. Then it's our job when we develop the Unified Planning Work Program to make sure we've accounted for the money to fulfill our obligation.
Right.
And Harmony, correct me if this is something. That's it. So we create, and that's what we're doing with this public participation plan that we're getting your feedback on today and we'll come back to for action. Is we're saying, as the TPO, what do we require of ourselves? What do we say are options in our tool? But if it's a requirement of ourselves, in another 2 to 3 years, you'll have somebody, Harmony, or someone else coming before you and saying, this is what we said we were going to do, and this is how we did against what we said.
I mean, I have a question. What's the ballpark budget that you have for, like, I see the 2,600 for print. Is that like, what's the budget you guys have for investing, printing things, ads and social media, et cetera?
We'd have to check our Unified Planning Work Program to see the exact budget.
Okay,
And
it's
that,
more than 2,600 a year.
yes, and so we've used, for example, we have done newspaper ads for the LRTP amendments. We've done newspaper ads for the LRTP adoption. We've done it for the Transportation Improvement Program. We've also done it, they're required to do it by state law for the transportation and state requirements for the Transportation Disadvantage Program. So for example, for the Transportation Disadvantage Program, we will have to do a newspaper ad regardless of what happens with this, because that's a requirement of that program. So there are other ads and printings that we do.
Yeah.
2 things. I am concerned about discontinuing posting in the newspaper. I've hosted public meetings where the only people that showed up read about it in the newspaper within just the last year. So people are still using the newspaper. Also, newspapers are like virtual now. So I don't know if there's some way to like have an advertisement in like the virtual space of the news. But I have to voice my concern about removing that. The second concern I have is about not doing a public hearing for the list of priority projects anymore. Why is that included in this plan? I didn't realize that that wasn't like a state requirement to do a public hearing for the plop.
It's simply because we're separating it from the tip now. So the tip is required to be heard at a public hearing.
Yes.
Because now that they're separated, we wanted to make it easier for staff to get that document approved. So in the instance where if
I'm sorry to jump in. I think one of the things that goes into that is that we still will have the public meeting for the list of priority projects, and we will still be promoting it through the methods. It isn't required to be a public hearing. It could be a public hearing if there's a desire. I think this sets the bare minimum. And we certainly could do public notice in a variety of ways, regardless of if it's a public meeting or public hearing. But certainly, I mean, this committee, it's your right to make recommendations. If you disagree with that, they would be considered by the TPO board when they approve it.
Yeah, I would have to say that I understand that they're being separated, but I think that the list of priority projects is super important and deserves its own public hearing style meeting. So if I have to make a motion, or if I don't know, I guess I can't do that right now. It's not that kind of meeting, but how do we proceed? Because
I will include that in my notes for what we've heard so far and make sure it's presented to me so they know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dustin.
Well, I just want to ask the question, what was the decision made to basically make the minimum? So I take the minimum public notice 10 days, which would be, that's the least amount of time you guys can have for a public announcement. Okay, so I see that amongst the 10 days, the only day out of there was originally 15 days. Why was the decision made based upon doing it all in 10, why don't we just bump everything up to 15 days?
It's simply just because it's a minimum, so it gives staff flexibility sometimes because we're relying on information from other agencies. Sometimes we end up on a rush period if there's a delay. So having that minimum gives us that flexibility to still be within the standards that we said we would hold ourselves accountable to. But of course, as the TPO, we always try to go above and beyond. So it's not that we're only going to do 10 days. It's just a minimum.
Now, is that 10-day minimum, is that a legality requirement then, or is that just something that you guys initiated yourselves? Like, what is the legality requirement for minimum notification?
The only one that has a legality, I believe, is the public participation plan.
And I think to build on that, the standard that we are required to set a standard for ourselves.
Okay.
And that's what this is doing, except for the public participation plan. And so by doing this, we're saying we're fulfilling our requirement to say what we're going to be doing.
I want to clarify one thing just for everyone who's figuring out the rules here. Dana could make a motion if she wanted. Although we're not taking an action here, Dana still could. We have a quorum, we still could pass a motion, make a recommendation. We can always do that. But we'll be voting, we will be taking action on this at the next meeting. So that may be a more appropriate time to hear. They're gonna come back take our feedback into account and come back. And then you could pass a motion then too. Yeah,
I just I have a couple comments or questions. The first one is about the brainstorming question that you have about the newspapers. I think, like, based on my experience, I think the rec mail postcards were the most effective, or having like specific letters. So maybe for a meeting, if you can send 2 of them, be like right after the other, so people kind of pay attention that something is coming up. The second thing you mentioned about removing the road signs. I disagree with that. I think the road signs were really important, in knowing that there's a project going on, especially that not everyone, and I'm one of them, even though I'm a planner and I'm in the field, I still find the new projects around my area by like driving around using the signs. And if you think that if the QR code were proven not effective on those street signs, then maybe you should remove it, but maybe make the signs larger. So people at least would know and know the date and know that like there's a project coming up and what the agency is, at least they can look it up. So like they would like remember, oh, there's something up. So at least they'll Google it. I mean, I think it's also, I want to commend you for the presentation. I think this is a good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Dana.
Quick follow-up to that. Some people don't like to scan QR codes.
Yeah.
Some people are paranoid about it. 'Cause it could take you to any site. It could steal your information. Like there's all kinds of funny things. And then some people just don't know how. So having some kind of link, like a shortened link, like a bit.ly or short URL, always should be included even when there is a QR code. But just wanted to make a note of that for all of your outreach.
Yeah, Brandon.
Sorry, one last thing, not to fixate on this. It would be great if we were given like visibility into the costs. I mean, like I appreciate like not every single person who finds out about a meeting or everything, like from, for example, a sign they're walking past is going to immediately sign or like scan a QR code. So it can be hard to measure these, but if we have any way of tracking whatsoever the return on investment of cost per like engagement, that would be fantastic. That way we could be like measured against each other in terms of what is the most effective and where we should be prioritizing. I think that'd be really cool to see. And then I also, just going back, I hate to keep fixating on it, but as I understand, as it is laid out currently, the plan commits a certain amount of money to public engagement, and these public engagement categories have already been set. We are trying to change so that the amount that is recommended for specifically advertising within newspapers and within signs is reduced, correct?
I can clarify that. This plan has no money associated with it directly. When this plan is adopted, it doesn't have a funding amount of what goes on to implement that. That happens with the Unified Planning Work Program that gets adopted every other year. And the Unified Planning Work Program says how much money we have available to spend on different efforts. So there is a cost to implementing this plan, but this plan doesn't take into account how much money will be spent on that. And the other clarifying question I have related to your first comment is, are you interested in measures of effectiveness and return on investment for what we've done previously, or are you interested in that, incorporating that into a future part of the public participation plan?
Well, I mean, frankly, I think it would be hard to evaluate the effectiveness of a future public participation plan without looking at the past like data of it. So I think the previous data that shows return on investment would be a good indicator of the future. So
sure, and just to mention, the measures of effectiveness report that Harmony mentioned at the beginning was adopted earlier this year, and the purpose of that report is to measure what we've done. So we can definitely take that into account to the best we can now, but the purpose of this plan is to take what we saw in that report along with additional feedback and develop a new plan or an updated plan so we can then in a couple of years do measures of effectiveness of how we're doing on that plan.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, one follow-up. So hearing from this committee that you're interested, for example, in return on investment and measures of effectiveness helps us make sure that we incorporate that into this plan so we can do that in the future. So that's really important for us. And I'm hearing a lot of that tonight. So it's really important for us to know that that's something the committee is interested in, is measuring, and that includes a cost to implement.
Yeah, because that'll help you identify what's your best methods of advertising out there then, so you can dedicate more towards that instead of wasting your money someplace else.
Yeah, Ed?
The only thing I would add to this is measures of effectiveness or, return on investment is a great measure. But there are some populations that are much more costly to get to. So I would just caution against totally relying on return on investment. Because sometimes it costs more to reach this group of people or that group of people, and the return on investment is going to be lower because you're reaching fewer people because they're harder to reach.
True, but you could eventually find out what's gonna be that effective method for that area of society. And then dedicate what that method is just for them overall. You say, I'm going to focus more money in that area specifically, whereas you're not having to spend money across the board, the spectrum for everybody.
Yeah, but you might find what's the most effective for this special population. And it's still more expensive than what you're spending on the general population. And that's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
I would, agree with Ed's position, because some media is more differently with different populations. And it's important that they get a mixed opinion of across various populations, that all have, stakes in whatever projects are going on. So pure cost per engagement, may not be the only metric to judge, this by.
Yeah, great point, Mr. Bush, closing us out on this topic. Are we ready to wrap this up, guys? This one? Anybody online have any comments or questions?
We received a comment in the chat about short surveys or informing residents upfront about the expected time required to complete it can help alleviate survey fatigue. Another option is face-to-face surveys at local events or marketplaces.
Okay, thank you, Harmony. Sorry, I got your name wrong. Yeah, okay, thank you, Harmony. Now let's try to get to some unfinished and new business. One thing about the December meeting, the TPO staff is recommending we do a separate meeting from the TAC, which we normally will do in December, but to do one separate, do it at the normal CAC time. The one consideration is Carson is in high school, and so let's do it at a time when he can make it, not have to miss school. And so, yeah, there will be, and then we'll also have action items at that December meeting. Do you have anything else to add on that?
Yes, we will have action items in December. We anticipate a kind of busy end of the year. We're trying to balance that out, but we see that coming and wanted to address that. The other thing is we got feedback from the TAC and they are asking us to separate this as staff. We're looking at options so that the TAC and CAC can still have some kind of work together event. But we get very strong feedback from the TAC that they would like to separate them.
I don't want to be with them either.
Well,
Sorry, guys.
yeah.
But so we wanted to update you on that change to the schedule. So
It will be December 3rd.
3rd in the evening, so it was scheduled for December 3rd in the afternoon. We're looking to move that back to the evening like we have tonight.
Do you want to talk about the member interest poll and the results?
Sure, let me pull up the slide. So thank you to everyone who completed the poll. So as some of you know and others are new, so maybe don't know, what we do is we have a standing link that any CAC member can fill out at any time for member request items. We also collect them through this meeting and I receive them periodically in other ways like. And so earlier this year, we started collecting those and said that to you every 6 months, we would come to you with a measure to see which items you're interested in, because we do get a lot of these, and we want to make sure that we're bringing the ones you're most interested in to you, as well as the ones we can do. So after the June meeting, we sent you this poll, we sent a reminder about it. And this includes all of the member interest items that we get through CAC meetings, through the form, through email, and the items currently stay on the list until the topic is covered. As of June, we had 30 items on the list. We had 9 polls completed, and the respondents were allowed to pick up to 3 responses each. We had 6 items with more than 2 votes. 11 items had 1 vote, and 13 items received none. So the top items from the poll are listed here, and staff provided some notes on how we could address these or next steps. So the top ones include the CSX track removal and involvement. The TPO was not involved in this, but we're going to research and speaker can be found. Another was the value structure of projects. This can vary a lot depending on the implementing agency. And by implementing agency, I mean if FGOT is doing a project, if the county is doing it, if one of the cities are, or someone else, how they do projects can be quite different. So we might ask tonight or in the future for further feedback on what you're looking for on this item so we can get a presentation that matches your expectation. We also had an item about how project plans are changed. And we had questions on this as well, if you meant for TPO plans, partner plans, like we can speak for how we at the TPO change projects and plans, but not for others. So if it is a desire for others, having that information would help us get the right people. A major projects report, we were looking for clarity on if it's from the Transportation Improvement Program, the LRTP, or somewhere else. FDOT federal funding sources for transit and bike programs. We'll look at an opportunity for this. I think we had a lot of clarity on what was being sought for this item. Same with the next one, the Tampa Bay Next segment update. We have clarity on what this is and are looking for an opportunity. So the next steps is we're going to work to address these beginning at the top. We also would like your feedback on what some of those items mean so we can get the right presentation. We'd also like the CAC to think about how we collect the member request items and balance them with the actions we have to take before you so you can provide the feedback to the TPO board. And we also like, as you can see, a lot of these items are not clear to us, and there are a lot of items that got no votes. So we'd like to have a conversation, not necessarily tonight, but we wanted to prepare the CAC to ask for your feedback in a future meeting about how we can better address the member request items. We want to make sure that we're taking things to you that you've been interested in, balancing that with the other things we are required to take to you. But we want to also make sure that we have a process for either removing items for the list or focusing on the ones that are most relevant to the most members. And so wanted to plan to see with the CAC either for some discussion now or in the future, we can schedule it to make sure that we're being the most effective we can with your request items, whether it's understanding the request or how long they stay on the list, get put on the list by a member who is then off the committee and trying to, but other members might still want it. So trying to understand how we balance all that from your perspective so that we're doing justice to the things that you want to hear about. So that's my update for you. I'm happy to take feedback if the chair wants to, or collect that at a future meeting, whatever.
Any burning piece of feedback?
I think it makes sense that they would ask us to prioritize and if we have to limit, or not limit, but understand our requests for further analysis requires their time, and we have to be able to manage that.
I did, and I'll look and see if we can schedule a future time to talk about this more. If we can't, or in the meantime, if members have things, either clarification on the items, this is included in your packet, so you can think about what you're looking to see from those top items. You can always email me, oh, this is what it meant, or this is how I interpret it. That would help us. And then also, if you have ideas or kind of thoughts on how we do this, feel free to email me as you think of them so I can start to incorporate that.
Do we know who asks for each one? Sometimes someone asks a question and we are like, oh, we'll do a presentation on this. And then 6 months goes by and that person may not be that interested, or maybe they still are, but.
We try to track that the best we can, that people fill the form. We ask for people's names. If it's someone saying at a meeting, I'm usually jotting it down quickly, but we have the recording. So I usually can go back to the recording and fill in some of the names.
Okay. Before we wrap up, reminder, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 3rd at 6. If there's no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Justin motion, Dana seconded. We are adjourned, guys.
Yeah.